We are drinking Bordeaux wines, baby. This episode is about first growth. We're also going to speak about the incredible bottle that is in front of us and how we paid 90% less at auction and how you can too. Find out how much this bottle of wine cost us at the end of this video. In the meantime, Master Sommelier Carlos Santos, a lot has happened in the start of this opening of the podcast. You've brought out the tongs. There's been live flames in the studio. I was very concerned the fire department were going to be called and we were showered in sprinklers. But that's all going to be unveiled across future episodes. Let's talk about first growth. And in particular, you've just opened this bottle of wine. What are we drinking? Because it's not a first growth.
It is not a first growth. But yeah, we are drinking Mission Haut-Brion. So 1988, pretty good vintage, not exceptional. If he was 1 year older, would be absolutely spot on. And 1989, which is a very, very classic vintage.
I think they call it, I read online, the goat.
The goat, yeah. Well, one off, yeah. 1982 would be another one.
So is there other goats? Is there like the LeBron and other people like, well, the Michael Jordans over here?
Well, that's it, yeah. 1982, a little bit older. So that's exactly it is.
Anything else happened in that year that was exceptional?
You were born?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. I was 1 year older, so was 1 year before.
Birth wine as well, which makes this very, 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 very fun.
Very special, yeah. I thought so.
But I did buy this at auction. We'll explain all of that at the end because we got this for a ridiculous price. And you've already taken the cork out with the tongs. You've had a first crack at the nose, and it's not corked.
It is not corked. It's very good. With these old wines, it's very, very, very risky because obviously the wine has to be kept well. Really good, maintenance of the bottle and storage because the wine is perfect. It's perfect condition.
Grace.com, find out how much we spent and went up against 46 other bidders, but we came out on top.
That's it. Well, that's good. That's a good win.
So while we do drink our first Bordeaux, a really, exceptional bottle of wine, you really wanted to focus, and I love this. You said, I really want to speak about, now that we have the opportunity to be in the area, to speak about first growths. So, Master Sommelier Carlos Santos, what are the first 5 growths?
The first official 5 growths are in the Haut-Médoc and one in the Grave region. So the Haut-Médoc, you have 5 different communes in which Pauillac is probably the most important. And you have 3 first growths, so Lafite Rothschild, Mouton Rothschild, and Chateau Latour. And then we have also Margaux, where we have Chateau Margaux. And then other appellations like Saint-Julien or Saint-Estèphe do not have a first grow. They have second grow, third grow, fourth grow, and fifth grow. And then we have in the Grave region, which is in fact where this wine comes from. And this one is particularly in Talence, which is a smaller commune appellation within the larger area of Grave. And then its brother or sister, if you like, Haut-Brion.
Yeah,
that's the fifth first grow, which is the only one outside of the Haut-Médoc,
right?
Which is a little bit further north in the region of Bordeaux.
Which was why, I knew, from the label, I bought this. It's Chateau La Mission
Haut-Brion, yeah.
Haut-Brion. So I knew that it must have been in the family. So this is the same ownership.
Now, yes.
No, but it wasn't once upon a time?
It wasn't, no. Okay. Not for the whole time.
Okay.
So very interesting. I mean, a little bit of history. There's obviously dates back to mid-1500s, so 16th century, and Pontac, Lontenac, and then the Chiapel families. So along the time, the first one Pontac, and then the Lestonac, and then first-time owner, American owner, was the Chiapel family, and they were actually quite important because they created. And if you see pictures of the entrance into the chateau, you have these beautiful walls and gates, etc., which were made by this family, the Chiapel. So, and then of course it changed hands again and again until these days, which is Clarence Dillon, and that's now since 1983. But they owned Chateau Haut-Brion for a lot longer than that, beginning of last century, I think it is. He has been in the family for a long time, right next door to it, but this one only since 1983 is within the Clarence Dillon, which was really, really good because once they came in, they kind of revolutionized a little bit the vineyards, the winery. They changed quite a lot of things and make it the important wine it is today, basically.
Well, I mean, no better time now to taste this wine then. Yeah. Cheers. And as we cheers and have our first taste, my first taste of, we're
Super,
going to get into, what do they call it? A super second?
Yeah, that's another good question, which I think we should talk a little bit about.
Definitely gone into the tertiary flavors, but still a little bit of fruit hanging on in there.
Yeah.
Feels like me. A little bit of my young personality still thriving in there, but the dad bod father of two is the tertiary sits before you.
Yes.
I do feel like a leather belt at times. We've kind of talked about what the first 5 growths are, but there is online a bit of debate by people. Of course, the purists will say you stay to the 5, but I did read, and I'm kind of using the exact terms that I saw online. Today, the term first growth, I want to know how you feel about this, is loosely used to include Lafite, Latour, Montun, Rothschild.
Moto Rothschild, yeah.
Yep. Margaux, Haut-Brion, La Mission Haut-Brion, which is what we're drinking today.
Yeah.
Pavie.
Chateau Pavie, okay, yeah.
Angelus.
Angelus, yeah.
Cheval Blanc.
Yeah.
Ausson.
Chateau Zone, yeah.
Petrus.
Yeah.
Le Fin, La Fleur, and Yakim.
Okay.
So that's
yeah.
a fair few. Obviously, those are just like the premier French wineries, aren't they?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Are you a purist because you're a master somm and you're like, stick to the 5? Or do you have a little bit of a off the backboard?
So basically, how it started is 1855. Napoleon III decided to create an exhibition where he would select the best French wines. And then obviously in the Bordeaux classification, he elected or selected 5 different rankings. So first row, second row, third, fourth, and fifth, right? And of course, it's a very, very political thing these days. So imagine removing Lafite Rothschild from the first growth. Lafite Rothschild is a very powerful name, yeah? So how would you ever be able to do that? You won't. It's so political. While there are some estates that are on a second level, on a second growth, which I would include in this list, and they are not, like, Chateau Montrose, for example, or Causes Tournelle are fantastic wines that are not on the list. If this classification were to be redone after, 160 odd years, a lot of things would change. And a lot of wines that are on the second growth or third growth would come down to fifth. A lot of the fifth would come to second or third. Lynch-Bage, for instance, is a super, super nice wine. And it's only a fifth grow. So, there would be a lot of changes. But of course, it's so political, it's hard to touch. Then, of course, because of this, other classifications came through, like in 1955, so exactly 100 years after, the Grave thought that they were not kind of placed fairly, because only one wine from the Grave was selected to be on the first row of the Haut-Médoc. So again, that's quite odd, because why 4 wines in the Haut-Médoc and then 1 wine from the south put in the same bunch, and nothing else around, nothing from the Saint-Emilion or from the right bank. Then, of course, they just came together and they created this new classification, 1955, where La Mission belongs in this case. But then again, if this were to be redone, I think a lot of changes would do, and definitely this would be one wine that could probably score, on the first growth. But again, I think Morose, Causes Tournelle,
a couple above it.
Yeah, couple of them as well.
So
alongside, yes, Petrus, Ozon, Angelus, Cheval Blanc, especially.
Hard to really pick, right?
Lupin.
You'd have to make a top 10 growth, and then really decide the next 5.
Yeah, exactly. And then change it maybe over, every 4 years, every 6 years.
Or like the Olympics. The Olympics of wine.
Deserve.
Or like the Premier League.
Yeah, that's
or the Champions League, where they have to knock out the bottom 2 and bring in the next 2.
That's it.
We are drinking a 1988 a Chateau La Mission Haut-Brion. We're lucky enough to be tasting it in the studio now. Can you please tell us what we're experiencing from a master sommelier's opinion?
Well, yeah, I think all the primary fruit is gone. All that. You still feel a little bit of cassis, but it's really that mature tobacco, leather, cigar box, dried prune, dried date, a little bit of dried fig, leather, a lot of leather. It's a lot of that tertiary aroma, almost a little dried spices, dried cardamom, almost a shaved nutmeg. It's really, really elegant. It
shows the complexity for you to be rattling off so many different flavors in this assessment. But I'm confused, right? We're drinking a bottle of wine that is in the $1,000 plus, and we'll get to the pricing very soon. What's the difference between, I've had old Australian wines from the Barossa Shiraz that are 30 years old that have lots of leather, no fruit, into tertiary, tobacco box. So what makes this wine special?
I think the region itself, Grave, I think the making, I think the vineyards, how they are microscopically looked after. And not saying that Australians are not, but you look at the alcohol level on this wine is 12.5. If we are looking at perhaps an equivalent in South Australia, 14.5, 15.5. So it's just a level of ripeness when the grapes are picked.
So you're talking about conditions, and as we like to say, terroir is a huge one.
Terroir is a great word, because terroir just really encompasses everything, right? It's not only the soil where it is grown, but the whole atmosphere of the vineyard. And I'm not saying that Australians don't have that. I think, of course, Australians also have terroir, because that's something that it has to come from somewhere. Is the soil, is the environment, is the wind, is the river, is water influence, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I think Stephen Pennell recently spoke about, the different climatic conditions that can happen with soils, and of course the region of where geographically you are, whether you are affected by coastal regions,
It is terroir. Terroir. In French, say it so romantically. I mean, fair enough, because it's their word, but it applies anywhere where there is a growing, I guess. Yeah.
So what is the difference between first growth and second growth wine? Is it purely just first growth is the top 5, and then it's the next tier of...
Correct.
So it's like a pyramid, like in Australia. Did you used to have in Portugal the food pyramid?
Yeah.
Where you had sugars up the top and then carbs down the bottom and proteins in the middle?
Yes, the sugars at the top, which are what you shouldn't have.
Shouldn't have, so the least amount.
In this case, is what you should have. If you can afford them.
Gotcha. So we're into fats, I think, now. So that was first growth is first. And so second growth is what we're having now, right?
No. So this is not a second growth, because this wine was never classified on that 1855 classification. If you want to put it on a classification, is on the 1955 Grave classification.
Gotcha.
And there's no first or second. It's just a list of different chateaux where this one belongs. And that's the Grave, the region appellation Grave classification. So there's no first or second. It's a Grave classification. So it is a first grow from the Grave.
So why am I hearing the word online Bordeaux's super second growth?
Okay, that's a different story. Yeah. Super second would be the ones I was just talking about before. Chateau Montrose, Causes Tournelle, for instance, which are on the second level, on the second tier. So you have the first grows, the 5 first, and then you have 14 second grows. And some second grows from this list are the super second, because they're so
it's
good,
such a fine line. They should be in the first growth.
They should be on the first.
And it's like kind of rude for it to be classified amongst some other second names in that top 14.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Because some have been there since 1855.
Yeah.
And
some of them, some super seconds probably outperform some of the first growths in some
Exactly
region.
right.
Gotcha.
Let's not name them.
No, don't want to start that.
Yeah.
Plus I can't pronounce them.
And then there's other thing, which are second wines. Okay. So second wines.
Yeah, that's me when I'm drunk. Then I have a third wine, and then I make a silly mistake and I go, should we have a fourth wine?
So the lesson is start with the first wine
of
and
course.
end with the third and the fourth.
I've made that mistake.
Okay. No, don't end with the best one, because you can't taste it anymore. But the point is, second wines. What are the second wines of a chateau? Are the secondary vineyards. So let's say that for La Mission Haut-Brion, the best grapes, the best vineyards, the more aged, older vines will go into La Mission Haut-Brion. And then let's say that they replanted the corner of the vineyard, or some part of the vineyard is not as good, whatever the reason may be. The lesser part of the vineyard will go into La Chapelle, La Mission Haut-Brion. And that is a second label from the first label. So first label is La Mission Haut-Brion. The second label would be La Chapelle, La Mission Haut-Brion, which is a lot less expensive. So it would be, I don't know, if this is $1,000 in a restaurant, then probably La Chapelle, La Mission Haut-Brion would be $150. So it's great value.
Yeah,
but
we know it. There's so many comparables. Like Bass Phillips got its Premier, and then it's got classifications, estate, etc. underneath it.
Like everything else, yeah, like every other wine. But so that's the second wine. So not to be confused with super seconds or second growth. Those are all different things.
Second wines. But we are drinking a first wine from La Mission.
We are drinking a first wine from La Mission Haut-Brion, which is the little brother, little sister of Haut-Brion, which, again, it's the same owner. In many years, Haut-Brion will be more elegant, will be a bigger wine. Bigger wine as in awards and elegance and finesse and all of that. While La Mission Haut-Brion, in certain years, can outperform Haut-Brion. Okay?
Wow.
So in certain years.
Well, 1988, what a great year. And thank you everyone for getting to the end. Here is the secret sauce, the costings. Now, this is not fair because it is talking about the 1989, which was one of the GOAT years. But the 1989 is currently selling online. You can buy it right now. There's one available for $2,735 delivered to Australia.
Sorry, repeat.
$2,735 delivered.
1989, yeah.
1989. I did see a 1988 going for $1,800. But it was in a bit better condition for the label. But I'm really impressed with what we got here today.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. And how much did we pay? Here is my tax invoice. This was in an auction, a French sale at grays.com. And I managed to get this bottle for $260 plus a buyer's premium of $45, and delivery, bringing the total to $314.70.
Yeah, that's good value.
For a price of $1,800 comparable online, the first thing that comes up on Google, I'm pretty happy with that.
Grace.com.
Yeah, baby. A big thank you to you, Carlos, for educating us on the first growths while we drink a beautiful La Mission Haut-Brion, and glad to share it with family and friends. So, salud to you, dear sir.
Cheers.
And to many more French bottles being drank on the podcast.
Cheers.